Hello, welcome to Shrimplovers. Today I thought I'd do a quick video and show you all on how to properly wash live blackworms. Live blackworms obviously are live, so they need to be looked after just like a fish does. Live blackworms need to be kept cold, so for most people that's keeping them in the fridge. Some people that have got lots of tanks and use lots of blackworms keep them in a little fish tank with a filter. But I wanted to show you today how in the shop here at Shrimplovers, how we wash and maintain our live blackworms. So when you come in to buy them, they are clean, healthy, and the best nutritional food for your fish. So come on, have a look at the blackworms that we've got. So these worms are obviously all alive. They do not bite, they do not hurt, they don't suck onto your skin. But the fish love them and they're very, very nutritionally sustainable for your fish. They don't contain a lot of fat, so they're better than frozen bloodworm. So these need to be washed twice a day and they need to be washed with cold water. So don't use tap water because it is too hot. You need to have old Coke bottles or milk bottles or water bottles in the fridge with cold water so you can wash them morning and night. Obviously, you don't have this many blackworms. You can use Chinese containers that you get from the Chinese shop, or you can use Tupperware containers, whatever you've got at home, preferably something rectangle or something, even if it's round, but something that's got a large surface area. So it doesn't have to be deep, it just has to be big. So when you're washing blackworms, you want to be very gentle with them because blackworms are actually quite sensitive, they're quite delicate. If you can think they've got no scales, they're just a little jelly worm. So you want to rock them around a little bit, and what you're doing is you actually, if you can see in there, the water's starting to get really gunky and we're separating from the worms all of that dead secretion, any dead worms that are in there, any shit that's in the bottom that is just polluting the water. So you don't want to be too rough with them, you just want to rock them around a bit. They'll generally separate quite well. And then once you've got them sort of separated and the water's a bit dirty and milky, you then want to bring them, now I put them in a container because you will get a lot of worms actually come out of this into the sink. So you don't want to lose them because obviously they're still fine to be fed to your fish. So once you've sort of rocked them around a bit and got all that dirty muck separated from the worms and the water, you just want to strain off that water. See the worms coming out? So those worms you can feed to your fish, don't throw them away. So you just rock them around a little bit. Try and get as much water as you can out because that is all of the dirty water. Okay, so now that you've got most of that water out, we now need to put cold water. I'm very lucky that in the shop here we've got a chiller unit that has nice cold water. So you just put some water in. This is nice, fresh, clean, cold water. At home you'd be using obviously a bottle. So you just put a bottle of cold water. You're going to need two obviously. One to wash them like this and then another one to fill them back up when you put them back in the fridge. So just give them another little rock around. Separate any more debris. You'll see the worms are actually starting to sort of clump into little clumps. That shows you the healthy, clean worms. And then around the edges, you've got all that dirty muck that you don't want in with your worms because that's just going to pollute the water. So do it again, just follow that same step as first time. Just pour off all that dirty water. You will also be pouring out any dead worms. So a dead blackworm is actually white. So if you ever see any worms in your mix that's turned white, that means that the worm has died. And that worm will pollute the water. And generally, fish don't actually like eating dead blackworms. So now that's all you need to do. We now just fill it up. I like to put probably 1 centimetre above the worms. So have the worms with about 1 centimetre of water above them. Blackworms are silly actually. They'll actually suffocate one another. So they can actually ball up into such a tight ball that the worms inside of that ball will actually suffocate. And that's why they die, and that's why you constantly need to wash them. You need to constantly rock them around, because that sort of separates them out of that tight ball that they get themselves into. And then the worms, obviously, they die, they suffocate one another. So now these worms have been washed, they're right to go back in the fridge. Make sure that you don't freeze them. A lot of people's fridges sometimes freeze up, and if the worms get frozen, they'll die. They obviously can't be frozen. If you find that your blackworms start turning bad, so you start getting a lot of dead worms, you're washing them, but they're just not doing well, and you've still got a lot of worms left, you can do one of two things. You can chuck the whole lot in your fish tank. If you've got a few fish tanks divided out, those worms will actually live in your gravel. So the worms will just cultivate, they'll grow, they'll multiply, and as the fish are hungry and your little fish are digging around in the gravel, they'll find the worms and they'll suck them out and eat them. Otherwise, if you don't like the idea of doing that, buy yourself some cheap ice cube trays from a $2 shop or Woolies or Coles. Clean your worms as best you can and then put them in ice cube trays. Then freeze them. Obviously the worms are now frozen, so they're not going to die, they're not going to rot, they're not going to go off on you. And then you pop them out like you would frozen bloodworms. And then you have nice, fresh, clean, frozen blackworms. So everybody, that's how you keep your live blackworms at home, clean and healthy. And that's how we do it here in the shop. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.